This godless communism. In the first chapter, we saw what the communists would like to happen in America. It wasn't very pleasant. How can people think this way, you may wonder? To answer this, let's go back and see how communism began. Karl Marx, 1818 to 1883. Vladimir Lenin, 1870 to 1924. Joseph Stalin, 1879 to 1953. Nikita Khrushchev, 1894. These are the four principal leaders in the history of modern communism. The foundation of communism was laid many years ago by a writer named Karl Marx. From this man's mind has come one of the greatest dangers to the world that have ever existed. He was born in Germany in 1818, the son of a well-to-do lawyer. I hope someday that he will become a lawyer like myself. As a young boy, Karl was baptized a Christian. I am both surprised and happy that you have become a Christian, Karl. Well, I'm not happy about it. It was my father's idea. He changed his religion because it would help him in his business. Karl was not to become a lawyer as his father had hoped. The law interests me, but I don't want to be a practicing lawyer. I had hoped otherwise, but you will go to college. After a year at Bonn University, Marx was expelled. You must get rid of your wild ways and strange ideas. I will send you to another school where you can start over. Young Marx was then sent to the University of Berlin. I will attend only those classes which interest me. Let the others attend the classes of fools. One of his favorite classes was taught by Professor George Hegel. New ideas are not freely created in our minds. They are forced on our minds by other ideas. Good. He does not believe in a free will. That doesn't seem right. God has given us the power to freely make our own thoughts. Students hotly debated Hegel's teachings, Marx included. Karl, this man Hegel talks nonsense. I disagree. His way of thinking is correct, but it should be applied to things around us too, not just to ideas. We Catholics know that no ideas are forced on our minds. God has given us a mind with which we make free choices every day. The kind of choices we make will either decide whether we go to heaven or hell. Our choices are not made freely. Hegel says they are forced on us by the times in which we live. As for God, there is no such thing. Only a fool says there is no God. But Marx continued to think about Hegel's teachings. Perhaps I could apply Hegel's method to the only things I believe in, the things I can really feel and touch. I believe only in those things which can be weighed or measured. I believe man exists because he can be weighed and measured, but I do not believe that a man has a soul, because such a thing cannot be weighed or measured. For the same reason, I do not believe in God, nor do I believe in anything spiritual like heaven, hell, the soul, or immortality. Marx tried out his new ideas with his friends. I am a materialist. There is no God. The earth and all the things on it have just come to be by themselves. What happens to them is destined by fate. Karl, you are making a horrible mistake. Things like beauty or courage can't be measured, but we know they exist. And we know God exists too. We have many proofs. A materialist is a man who does not believe in any spiritual reality. The things of this earth constantly change, but they don't change because of God. They change because we are in conflict with one another. For example, our present way of life will be destroyed by the conflict between wealth and poverty. The rich and the poor will fight with one another over the riches of the earth. And in this struggle, the poor will eventually conquer the rich. Then the result will be complete happiness of all on earth, because all property will belong to all together. Thus Marx formed three important parts of communist belief. 1. No spiritual things exist, only material. 2. The history of the world is necessarily a struggle between the rich and poor. 3. From this struggle will come the rule of all the workers over all other people, and that rule will be perfectly good. We will hasten our heaven on earth by urging the workers to overthrow their masters by force and violence. Then they will form governments which own all the property of the country. Another young man, Friedrich Engels, accepted Marx's ideas and tried to spread them further. And Marx says that once the government takes over the whole world, we won't even need a government anymore. It will be a heaven on earth, with no rich, no poor, no government. True communism. Ha ha! You must be joking. That's insane. How could governments with that much power just die of their own accord? I'm afraid Karl Marx hasn't explained that to me yet. Editor's note: neither Marx nor any other communist has ever attempted to explain this strange belief. Marx did a large amount of writing about his ideas. Someday communism will spread all over the world, and my books will certainly hurry that day. His friend, Friedrich Engels, helped to support him while he wrote. Friedrich, this will be one of my most important works. I call it the Communist Manifesto. I am glad that I could help you, my friend. Years later, a young man named Lenin would be greatly influenced by this and other Marx writings. Comrade, Karl Marx has the answer. Now it is up to us to enlarge on his ideas and put them in practice in Russia. As for Marx, he spent his life as a man without a country. In trouble with the government in Germany, he and his family moved to France, only to be expelled for his beliefs. Karl, if you would only stop preaching that men are hardly more than animals. I will try again in Belgium. The Belgians did not approve of Marx either. We must leave at once. The authorities are after me. Can you blame them when you continually preach that the people should revolt? Finally, Marx journeyed to England, where he was allowed to stay. I believe this land will someday be overthrown by communism, yet it still grants me freedom. Marx spent his final days working on a book called Capital. As far as is known, he died still rejecting God or belief in any life hereafter. He was buried in Highgate Cemetery, London, in 1883. It was from the writings of Karl Marx that communism got its start. The first country to put his ideas into practice was Russia, and the man who brought this about was Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. We will learn more about him in the next chapter of this series. This Godless Communism.